Hello. If you are here watching this video, then you have reached out to me for smoking cessation using hypnosis. So what I wanted to do is just go over some of the information. Trying to get the shadow out of the screen there. Hopefully it doesn't show up for you. I wanted to go over this education packet that you have either picked up at the Wound Care Center at Spear Memorial Hospital or that I have emailed to you. This is the first part of the process, and with the COVID and everything that's going on, I thought if I did a video recording of it, you can go through the packet. We'll go through it like this, and you can begin those first steps that are necessary before your first hypnosis session. So if you want to just go ahead and pull out your packet, and then I will go over it with you. So the first 2 pages of the packet are questions. I don't know if you can see that. These questions are for you to go through and to answer. Then what I would like to do is set up a Zoom session where we go ahead and just review the answers to those questions, so that I can get an understanding of your particular drivers for why you smoke, how long you've been smoking, what's holding you to continue smoking, and be able to just work through that in my mind so I can build those things into your first hypnosis session. Then what my plan is I'm going to go ahead and record you a hypnosis session and allow you to listen to it. Then again, we'll set up another Zoom meeting and we'll talk about what's working well, what's not working well, so that I can keep just customizing the process for you. The second page, this page is what we call the subjective units of discomfort. So what I want to know here in this page is how married to these activities are you with smoking? So it goes on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 means I never think about having a cigarette, would never have a cigarette doing this activity, or I never do the activity. So some things are in there like alcohol, right? So some people don't drink, for one reason or another. And if that happens to be you, then you would just put a 0 or an NA for not applicable. What we're going to do is look at the things that you've listed as 10 is I cannot imagine doing this activity without having a cigarette in my hand. So one of the common ones is driving. People drive and they smoke and they're like, I can't imagine driving and not having a cigarette in my hand while I'm driving. So anything that you have listed as an 8, 9, or a 10, we have to start thinking about what are you going to do instead of that activity. So this whole process is a very engaged process. You are very, very engaged in this process consciously. Then we work unconsciously to be able to start to hardwire some of the things that you're consciously putting into place. So we get the conscious mind and the unconscious mind on board so that they're both working in the same direction. So let me just backtrack a little bit and just explain a few things to you. So first of all, what is hypnosis? Hypnosis is accessing the unconscious part of our mind, which is actually responsible for 88% of everything that we do. So our unconscious mind's primary purpose is to keep us alive. And it realizes that the more things that you do without thinking, the less energy that uses. The unconscious mind also interprets whatever you know as safe. So for many of you, you've been smoking for many, many, many years. And the unconscious mind thinks, I've been smoking for a long time. You're doing fine. There's no issue. And so it does not want you to give up smoking because it knows smoking and it likes what it knows and it does not like change. Hence the resistance that we very often have to change. So the unconscious mind doesn't realize that over time, the smoking is actually killing you. An example that I like to use for this is the frog. If you take a frog and you put it into a pan of boiling water, that frog is going to hop out of that pan because it gets the signals, danger, 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 and it hops out and runs away. Take that very same frog, put it in a pan of cold water, very slowly heat that water. That frog will adapt to the change, adapt to the change, adapt to the change, and die. And it never realizes that it is on a path that is destructive and that will kill it because the change is happening so gradually. This is exactly what happens with smoking. The changes are so gradual, so gradual, so gradual, the unconscious mind never thinks of it as a danger. Now, if you were to walk into a burning building, what would your unconscious mind be screaming at you? Get out, danger, danger. That's exactly what it would be screaming at you. However, because the smoking is so gradual, and I bet you when you had that very first cigarette, did you immediately love it? Or did you have some coughing, maybe some dizziness, maybe think this is disgusting, this is terrible? You had to fight through every message that your unconscious mind that was saying, don't do this, right? Because you're inhaling smoke directly into your lungs. That's the unconscious mind knows that that's not good. However, your cigarette manufacturers also know that your unconscious mind and your body physiologically is going to fight against that. So it puts chemicals in so that you don't feel it so badly. It actually puts analgesics in so you don't feel the burning in the throat. It puts in chemicals that make it taste better. It puts in chemicals that numb the lungs so that you don't understand that you're inhaling smoke into the lungs. And, you know, inhaling smoke into the lungs isn't good for your lungs. Your lungs want fresh air. So we fought through that. Then the addictive chemicals of the cigarettes, the tobacco, then starts to take over, and it starts to rewire parts of your brain so that your brain then wants to have these cigarettes. As you go on, time, years, weeks, months, years, many, many years, smoking, the unconscious mind accepts that this is a part of who you are. And because it accepts that this is a part of who you are, there's a feeling that all of a sudden there's a part of you that's going to be missing, that's not going to be present anymore when you give up smoking. And we need to simply allow the unconscious mind to remember that who you are is who you are before you started smoking. And that the smoking doesn't define who you are as a person. You define who you are as a person. The smoking is just a habit that you picked up along the way that right now you're looking to get rid of. Now, in order for hypnosis to be effective for smoking cessation, there's two things that absolutely must happen. The first one is you have to actually want to quit smoking. If you are like, I want hypnosis to be the magic pill, I don't want to quit smoking, but, you know, I think that, you know, if people tell me I need to, my doctor's telling me I need to, my family's telling me I need to, hypnosis can just be the magic pill. Let me just go in, let me sit through the sessions. I don't have to actively be a part of this process at all. This is not going to work for you, because it's really important that you want to quit smoking, that you're willing to be a part of the process. Hence those questions, and also looking at those subjective units of discomfort, so those activities, and how married are you to smoking with those activities. This is really important because you have to think about, what am I going to do instead? The second thing that is absolutely essential for hypnosis to help you with smoking, quitting smoking, is you have to want to quit for you. So if you want to quit for your wife, or you want to quit for your kids, You want to quit because your doctor tells you you have to, but you don't want to quit for you. Then it may be effective, but the chances of being effective long term are much less, because if we want to make permanent change in the unconscious mind, so the unconscious mind starts seeing you as a non-smoker, you have to value yourself enough to say, I want to take care of me. I'm important. I want to take care of me. I'm quitting smoking for me, for my health. I want to breathe easier. I don't want to have to stop in the middle of a flight of stairs in order to catch my breath. I want to be able to walk from point A to point B without thinking that I'm going to, have a heart attack and die because I have no breath. Whatever it is, I want to be able to reverse things that are going on in my life that I have because of the smoking. I want better healing. How is healing supposed to happen when you are inhaling smoke into your lungs? And that is what then is getting pushed out to the rest of your body. Your body needs oxygen. There's no oxygen in smoke. So every time that you take a puff of that cigarette, you're flooding your body with unoxygenated blood, because the smoke is getting in the way of delivering the oxygen to all the cells of your body. So if you have a wound and you need to heal, how are you going to heal when you're not allowing your body to have the oxygenated blood? And it's really important. I particularly relate to the wound healing because I am the clinical program director for the Wound Care Center at Spear Memorial Hospital. This is why I do the smoking cessation, because we have patients that come in and they have wounds that they want to heal. And sometimes those wounds aren't healing simply because the person is smoking. So they're fighting against the healing process. And the body's not able to compensate from the smoking, along with other things that might be going on. Circulatory issues. Circulatory issues could be simply because of the smoking, or it could be because of the smoking and some other things. But if you have a wound and you want to heal it, it's really important that you're giving your body the best chance to heal it. And a part of the way of doing that is giving your body good oxygenated blood, nice deep breathing of good oxygen to just allow that oxygen to get to every part of the body so that you're able to just facilitate healing and allowing your body to do what your body knows how to do if we give it the tools necessary to help it along. So the two things absolutely essential for smoking cessation to work is, number one, you have to want to quit. Number two, you have to want to quit for yourself. So now I want to talk a little bit about the reasoning. Why do you want to quit smoking? The reasoning for why is really important. I want you to take a 3x5 index card, write why it is so important for you to quit smoking. Just a general, well, I want better health, is a good reason, but is it really the reason? Ask yourself the question, what does not better health look like? Or if I continue smoking, what is my health going to be like in a year? What is my health going to be like in 3 years? What is my health going to be like in 5 years? Again, it is really important to understand the reason for the why. So let me give you a story to explain how powerful the why is. Whys save lives. They allow people that have a terminal diagnosis to stay alive until after the graduation, or until after the wedding, or until after the baby is born, right? When, the doctor's like, no, you have 3 months to live, or 1 month to live, or 1 week to live. And then yet people defy those odds. And how do they defy those odds? They defy the odds because they have a reason that is so important that their unconscious mind understands the importance of it and does whatever is necessary to keep them alive until after that event happens. So I want to give you an example of a story to really understand the power of the why. I was at a conference one and they were doing training on the importance of the why, and they showed us a video. Now in this video, this man is getting gas and he's at a gas station in a truck. And he's just humming and, you know, obviously in a good place. And so he finishes putting the gas in his car and he goes into the, front of the truck and he pulls out a bag of trash. And now he's looking at the trash and then he's looking over there where the barrel is. And he's looking at the truck and he's looking at the trash and he's looking over there at the barrel is, looking at the truck. You can clearly see that he's trying to decide, do I go run over there and throw this trash away and leave my truck unattended or not? So he decides to do it. He walks over to the trash. And in the moment that he does that, somebody jumps in his truck, closes the door, and drives away. Now this man chases after that truck like a maniac. He grabs onto the end of it. He's working his way up. Meantime, the guy is trying to race away that's stealing the truck. He gets up to the door handle of the front of the door. He's hanging on to it, right? The guy's trying to shoo him off, and so he's not really paying attention to the driving. He drives into a tree. The guy gets shooed off of the car. People are around. They come running. Are you okay? Are you okay? The guy gets up, staggering, walks over to the truck, opens the back door of the truck, and there is his infant child in a car seat. Why was he such a maniac at chasing the truck? It had nothing to do with the truck, right? He was going to chase that truck until literally there was a barrier that was bigger than he was. He would have given his life to save that truck because he wanted to save his child. That's how important it was to him. And that's the power of the why. It is so important because when you have a reason that means that much to you for wanting to quit smoking, then you write it down on that card. And when you're thinking about picking up that cigarette, you pull that card out and you connect to that reason. It is so powerful. It will get you through the moment. Absolutely will get you through the moment. It is very, very powerful. So think about it. It's not something that you might just automatically snap off. People always just give me the reason, well, this is it. What I want you to do is really think about what that reason is. Think about what does it mean if I continue smoking versus if I give up smoking. And if I continue smoking, right? Where does my reason stand in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, especially when it's health, right? What does my life look like a year from now? What does my life look like 3 years from now? What does my life look like 5 years from now? So really important to have a powerful why. Write it down on a 3.5 by 5 card. Carry it with you everywhere. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this preparing to quit. And that is, I think, the next 2 pages. And what we're going to talk about is from this moment forth, you are now smoking to quit instead of smoking for enjoyment. What we want to do here is we want to start shaking things up. We want to take everything that's automatic and routine about your smoking habit, and we want to change it. Because by doing this, we're starting to already send messages to the unconscious mind that change is coming before we even do the first hypnosis session. This is so powerful that I have had people quit smoking simply using these tools, and they've never needed a hypnosis session. So it's all a matter of how committed you are to really sticking to making these changes. So as a person who is now smoking to quit, instead of smoking for enjoyment, we want to change up the routine of your smoking. We want to, everything that you're doing right now regarding to smoking, we want you to stop doing it and do something different. Let me give you an example. How many of you drive and smoke? That's a big one, right? Driving and smoking. So from now on, starting today, starting right now, when you get into the car or your vehicle, I want you to take those cigarettes and I want you to lock them in the trunk. Get in the car, drive wherever you're going. If you really feel like you need to have a cigarette while you're driving, stop the car, pull over to the side of the road, get out of the car, go back to your trunk, pull out your cigarettes, stand outside the car and smoke that cigarette. Put the cigarettes back in the trunk, get back in the driver's seat, continue driving. If we can break the habit of driving and smoking for your first session, it makes the whole thing a lot easier. I don't know why, but people that really practice this before their first session tend to do well, tend to do better than those who don't. Those who don't, it tends to take them a little bit longer. So no more smoking while you're driving. Clean the car out, vacuum it out, balm it with an aerosol or fragrance or something so that your car no longer smells of smoke. My recommendation is a bottle of water. If you have a bottle of water with you in the car, it's hand to mouth. You're drinking. The water is really good as a detoxifier. It's a really great tool to use as a replacement instead of the smoking. So drinking water is really good for you. So now let's look at other areas of smoking. Do you normally smoke in the house? If you do, no more smoking in the house, smoke outside. If you don't normally smoke in the house, you only smoke outside anyways, I want you to change your location of where you smoke outside. If you normally smoke on the porch or on the deck, make it uncomfortable. Make every part of your smoking process as uncomfortable as possible. Go smoke where the trash barrels are, where it's stinky and icky, because now you're sending the message that smoking is stinky and icky to your unconscious mind. Just little things that we do start sending those messages, which really make it easier and make the process more powerful as we go through it. So if you normally smoke on the porch and you don't have trash barrels that you can go stand by, stand right on the edge of the road so everybody driving by sees you smoking. Right? Do whatever you can do to make it uncomfortable. Whatever is the most uncomfortable for you, just go ahead and do that with this smoking pattern. Do you smoke first thing in the morning when you get out of bed? Feet hit the ground, lighting the cigarette? Put some space between that. Start with a half an hour. Work your way up to an hour to 2 hours before you light that first cigarette. Again, we're starting a conditioning process. You can still smoke through the process, but we want to start weaning down on how much you're smoking, and we want to start changing those automatic routines. Are you somebody that lights a cigarette without even realizing that you've lit the cigarette? I want you to take your cigarettes, I want you to put them in a Ziploc bag, and I want you to put that Ziploc bag then in a Rubbermaid container with a lid. And now you're not going to smoke unconsciously without realizing it, because you have a whole process that you have to go through in order to get those cigarettes out of the container and into your mouth. So you're aware of it. We want to be aware of every single cigarette that you're smoking. Be totally conscious of the fact that you are smoking that cigarette. From the moment that you light it to the moment that you put it out. Be aware and present of the fact that you're smoking that cigarette. It's not solving any problems for you. It's only creating problems for you. So let's be aware of the habit. Let's make it a conscious process. That's really what we're trying to do, is we're trying to take it from an unconscious process and make it a conscious process. Now, I really like you to put these, and this, Smoking to Quit gives you a lot of tips and tools to do for, smoking to quit. So really look at them all, read them all, follow them all. Make it as conscious as possible. I like this to be in place for at least a week before you do your first hypnosis session, because we're making changes in the unconscious mind. So once now you're watching this video, map it out a week, right? Somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks usually before that first hypnosis session. We'll go ahead and schedule a Zoom session just to talk about those questions so I can get an idea of what your process is like And then what I'd like to do is just send you a video link where you can just, you know, sit back in a recliner chair or someplace that's comfortable, just turn it on, just listen to me talking to you, just close your eyes and listen, and then just allow that first session to go ahead and kick in. When you do that first session, that is your stop smoking day. When you listen to that first session, no more smoking after that. And then what I would like to do is do another Zoom session with you, just face-to-face talking, and talk about how did that first week go? What went well? What didn't go well? And then we'll do a second Zoom session. We'll talk about what went on, right? Then we'll just go ahead and let you get comfortable in the chair. And again, we'll just do another hypnosis session. I can record them on Zoom, which is really nice because I can send you the recording, and that way you can keep listening to it. I have a couple of other recordings also that I will send to just reinforce the first recording. I really recommend that you listen to it every night before you go to bed. It's like 12 or 13 minutes long. Climb into bed, just turn it on, listen to it as you're going to sleep. Because the last thing that you take in before you go to sleep at night is what's ruminating in your unconscious all night long. So why not be really directive about what it is that your unconscious mind's going to ruminate? And why not give your unconscious mind messages about you being a non-smoker, a permanent non-smoker, before you fall asleep at night, so that your unconscious mind starts adapting to the change. And we start bringing these ideas and these concepts in, because the more that your unconscious mind hears them, the more that your unconscious mind is then going to say, hey, this is the way it is. Now, a couple of things about your unconscious mind that are kind of interesting you might like to know. One of them is that your unconscious mind does not know the difference between fact and fantasy. Our conscious mind knows, but our unconscious mind doesn't. So if you, before you go to bed at night, are listening to this recording, you're bringing up images of you as a non-smoker, as a permanent non-smoker. This is the way you live the rest of your life. If you run those images in your mind over and over as you're just listening to the recording, falling asleep at night, what you're doing is you're creating a map in your unconscious mind of where it needs to go. And then it's going to be like, hey, you're not supposed to smoke because you're a permanent non-smoker. And once your unconscious mind gets it and it's on board with it, this process becomes so much easier. Because when you quit smoking and it's only a conscious process, it only lasts as long as you remember that you're quitting smoking, that you're a non-smoker. But the minute that you consciously forget, the unconscious mind jumps up and says, hey, smoker, grab that cigarette, smoke it right now. But if we can change the unconscious mind's image of you, and the unconscious mind starts thinking of you as a non-smoker, and now consciously you're like, non-smoker, I'm a non-smoker, you've got your conscious and your unconscious mind working in the same direction. When you've got them working in the same direction, you still have to be a part of the process. You still have to say, no, I'm not going to have that cigarette. But it becomes a whole lot easier because we've taken that resistance and we've moved it from a 90% all the way down to, maybe a 20%. And so it becomes a lot easier for you to say, no, I'm not going to have that cigarette. I'm a non-smoker. And the more that you do that, the more that your unconscious mind gets the message. So another example that I'd like to give you just to make it a little bit clearer. Think about you rearrange your kitchen and you move the trash barrel. Now, how many times do you go to the place where the old trash barrel was before you go to the new place where the trash barrel is, before you start remembering the trash barrel's moved and you start going to the new place, right? So this is the unconscious mind knows where the old place was. It directs you to that place. And then you get to that place, there's no trash barrel. And hopefully you haven't dropped something on the floor in the process. Been there, done that. And so, then it directs you to the new place. Well, at some point, the unconscious mind says, this is not energy efficient. We are wasting energy going to the old place and then going to the new place. And it flips the switch and it starts directing you only to the new place. Because it says we don't want to go to the old place anymore because that's not efficient. So the same thing with smoking. Sometimes your unconscious mind might be saying time for a cigarette, not even having a craving, it's just a thought. It's just a thought, time for a cigarette, because it's the habit of your unconscious mind saying time for a cigarette. And you say, I'm not a smoker, I'm not having a cigarette right now. And now it's done and it's over with. Okay, yeah, right. Oh, right, you're not smoking. So eventually the unconscious mind says, if I keep reminding him to have a cigarette, but he's not having a cigarette, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting energy reminding him to have a cigarette. Let's just start reinforcing that he's a non-smoker. And it stops reminding you. And it's just as simple as that. Really, it is. Each person has their own resistance. And once we figure out what those resistances are, we go ahead and we just work through them. And as we work through them, we start just flipping those switches in the unconscious mind, and it becomes a lot easier. You have to be a part of the process. Consciously, you have to be a part of the process. And then unconsciously, we're working to support what you're trying to do consciously. But your unconscious mind can't do it all, even though it's responsible for 88% of everything that's going on. The conscious mind, the 12% that the conscious mind is responsible for are things like the decision making, the rationalization, it's the critical thinking, your thought processes. That's all happening in your conscious mind. And if your conscious mind doesn't say, no, I'm not going to have that cigarette, unconscious mind is not going to 100% completely do it. All right, so let's get back to our packet. The next thing is just to be aware of all the chemicals that get put into cigarettes. I have read information that say over 600 chemicals can be found in a burning cigarette. When I was in nursing school more than 30 years ago, this really stood out with me. I mean, I was in my 20s. And they told me that if a toddler was to pick up one smoked cigarette butt, there is enough lead in there to give that toddler lead poisoning. So the filters work really good in the beginning. But what happens by the time you get to the end of the cigarette is that filter is saturated and it's no longer filtering out some of these chemicals, and now you're just getting in, everything right into your system. So a lot of chemicals, they're putting them in there to make it a more addictive, desirable process for you. So they also, many people don't realize there's, sugar in cigarettes. So in the beginning, that first few weeks, it's not a bad idea to carry around, Lifesavers or Tic Tacs or something that has a little bit of sweetness in it, because the way tobacco is prepared is it's typically soaked either in fermented fruit or molasses, and then it's let out to dry before they start adding some of the chemicals they're adding. Some of them are just natural byproducts of tobacco. But they go ahead and all these chemicals, but then you've got this sweetness, right? And now you take, it's like, a Tic Tac or a Lifesaver. There's not a lot of calories in it, but you're inhaling it at a very high temperature into your lungs, which is where everything gets dispersed right out into the bloodstream. And so now all of a sudden it causes a little sugar rise. So if you carry those, something with you, you start thinking like, oh, I need to have a cigarette, take the Tic Tac or take the Lifesaver or piece of gum or whatever it is that you want, because sometimes it's just the body looking for that little bit of sugar. It really has nothing to do with the cigarette itself. All right, now this page I think is really important, and what I want you to do is to just hang it on your refrigerator or your bathroom mirror, someplace where you're going to see it. Because what's so cool about this page is it starts giving you the benefits, as early as 20 minutes after your last cigarette. and then 8 hours after your last cigarette, then 24 hours after your last cigarette. So it's really nice to be able to kind of check off, got the 20 minutes, got the 8 hours, got the 24 hours, got the 48 hours. It just is positive reinforcement. So I think that this one is a really good thing to just be able to go ahead and have with you. This is just a consent form that says we've scheduled a meeting, and this meeting, there's no cost for this. This is a community service that I'm providing, through the Wound Care Center at Spear Hospital. And so it's just saying, yes, I understand that I'm consenting for these services, not holding, me liable for anything. Hypnosis is a really natural process. We actually go in and out of hypnosis all day long. Have you ever been driving? Just did this yesterday. And you start going in one direction, even though maybe it's not the direction you want to go into. So I was going to pick my son up yesterday afternoon. And so he lives in Lincoln. I live in Thornton. So I need to take a right to go to Lincoln, but I work in Plymouth. So I took an automatic left, realized, oh shoot, I'm going the wrong way, needed to turn around so I could get in the right direction. That's because my unconscious mind likes everything automatic. I normally go take a left because I'm heading to Plymouth, and so it was bringing me where I normally go. That's what it does. But if you have been driving like a long distance and all of a sudden you're like, where am I? What time is it? How long have I been driving? Right? It just drifted right off into a very light trance hypnotic state. Or have you been watching television or been in a movie theater? Movie theaters, this is their goal, is to put you into hypnotic trance during the movie because it provides an escape. When you go to a movie, what happens? You're having an escape from reality, and you become so involved in the movie that you have no concept of time. You have no idea that 2 hours just passed. You step out of the theater, you might even be a little disoriented, like, where am I, right? Because that's the goal of, the industry, is to be able to put you into a trance state while you're watching the movie, so that all you're focusing on is the movie and everything else becomes external. The unawareness of time is one of the big factors, indicators of being in a hypnotic state. So it's a natural state that we just normally go in and out of. You can bounce out of it in a second. I typically will count people into hypnosis, count them out of hypnosis. When you're in hypnosis, we're accessing the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is still there. It never shuts off, except for when you're sleeping. And so it's, roaming around. Sometimes it's critiquing the process. It's really funny. I did a couple of past life regressions is something that I do. And so I needed to experience a couple, and the whole entire time, right? I am in this deep hypnotic state, and my unconscious mind is still critiquing the whole process. And so it was really pretty interesting experience. But the unconscious mind is kind of like listening, and it can. Other times it just starts wandering, daydreaming, going someplace else. I'm not even listening to what they're saying. It doesn't matter. Once you're in that hypnotic trance, we've opened the connection between the conscious and the unconscious mind. So what happens is, if you take a circle and you kind of like draw a line, the top part is a little, the top 12% is your conscious mind. The bottom 88% is your unconscious mind. But a barrier develops between the conscious and the unconscious mind at around the age of 8. And so things that come in the conscious mind don't automatically drop into the unconscious mind as permanent, unless it's something that's impactful, significant, really emotional. So our emotions live in the unconscious mind. And if it's emotional, it may drop right into the unconscious mind. That's why traumatic events stay with you forever. They only happen once. And that's because they've dropped immediately into the unconscious mind, because that's where our emotions live. And so anyways, I think I digress a little. My apologies. We just want to be able to, the hypnotic state is really just a natural state. Once you've entered even a light trance state, It doesn't matter if your mind wanders. Your unconscious mind is still hearing everything that's going on. It's hearing the whole session. So that part's really good. And the other thing just about this is I just request that you let me know if you're not going to make an appointment. My job is not to judge. My purpose is simply to help facilitate you to be able to achieve something that you're trying to achieve. So you want to quit smoking. My goal is, it doesn't matter why you quit smoking, how long you quit smoking, what you think about smoking, what you don't think about smoking, any of this. It's just, my job is just simply to be able to pull the information needed to be able to help you go ahead and say, yes, I'm going to be successful at this. And my commitment to you is, if you don't give up, I won't give up, which means you have to be successful. You know, stubbornness, I guess, is a trait that I've had since I was pretty little. And I've held on to it. And so there's different ways to approach it. I come at it, the same way with everybody in the beginning. Then just based on how your journey is going, I just start coming at it from other ways to say, there's different approaches that we can take. There's different things that we can do to be able to help you just work through the process so that you can be successful as a permanent non-smoker. So now that you've watched this video, what I want you to do is just go fill out your questionnaire, figure out what your key things are that you're married to with smoking and what you're going to do as replacement behaviors, and start putting into practicing that you are smoking to quit. You're no longer smoking for enjoyment. And then just reach out to me. You will have gotten this video from me by email. So just email me back and we can set up a time to do a one-on-one face Zoom session together and just talk about that questionnaire. And I'll custom make that first video for you so that you'll have it in that first week. So give yourself at least a week before you listen to that first video. And then let's go ahead and set up a second Zoom session to say, how did that week go? What went well? What didn't go well? What did you struggle with? And then we'll go ahead and do a second Zoom session, one-on-one using Zoom. All right. If you have any questions, just reach out to me. I'm sure you also have my phone number if you have the email, because I usually am emailing it from my work email, which has my phone number right in there. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you. It's going to be a great journey. Took my glasses off, I can't see. And I dropped them on the floor.